All right, everyone. Thought I'd do this little intro to Kings and Kaisers before our YouTube game. Me and MooseCow are going to have a YouTube game where I'm going to be playing the Central Powers and he will be playing the Allied Powers. But I want to do this little intro to sort of explain some of the game mechanics before we go into our game, in case you're interested. I will be filming some more polished, better written rule videos at some point, kind of like how G.I. Joe did for BBR a while back. We'll definitely have something like that coming in the future, but this is just an intro for our upcoming YouTube game. As you'll see, I already took my Austro-Hungarian turn, which goes first. So this map isn't completely accurate, but that's how it'll look after my turn. So this game is basically like a spiritual successor to 1914, the original Axis and Allies 1914. Me and MooseCow pulled in some inspiration from some other sources as well, and we included some brand new things like the field technology, which is completely brand new and custom from MooseCow, and we added in a few other things too. So we think we have a very cool game here with tons of possibilities for all sides. So just to get started right off the bat, I took my Austro-Hungarian turn and I took out Serbia, which that's the first that is by like every single game you have to start the game attacking Serbia because that's how the war started. That's a carryover from 1914 as well. So I gained the capital of Serbia, which is Belgrade, and I also took out Romania. So what's interesting about this game, what we thought would be cool, is that unlike with, say, BBR, where the Axis are trying to gain points and the Allies are trying to stop them, what if both sides are fighting for points? And those are the same points. So, for example, the Russian Revolution, if the Russian Revolution is triggered, then the Central Powers get the victory point for the Russian Revolution. If it is prevented, the Allies get it. And the Russian Revolution happens when the Central Powers control at least 7 original Russian territories at the end of Russia's turn. If that happens, Russia is knocked out of the war automatically. So they are no longer in the war, and they now have a civil war, which happens within whatever parts of Russia are left that have not been taken by the Central Powers. So that's how we kind of wanted to approach our victory points in this game, is that everybody's fighting for them and they're the same ones. So I think it's really cool. We've play tested it. It's awesome because the victory point tracker sees a ton of action. So you can see over here we have these medals. The silver medals are worth 1 point. Each of these are victory points. A lot of these listed here with the little star icons are cities, victory cities. Those are the ones that you can see in red on the map, like for example Verdun, Paris over here. You can see it's a little blocked here, Cologne. We were just talking about Belgrade, Rome. There's a bunch on the map, and yeah, those are your victory cities. But this victory point tracker and income tracker is just a prototype. It's all shiny because it's laminated. I am talking with my printer right now to get some very plush ones made, and I'm going to make those available very soon. But we're just keeping track of these victory points with bingo chips. So they're kind of see-through. They fit kind of perfectly within these medals here. The red are the Central Powers, blue are Allied Powers. So there's a whole bunch of victory points here, and I kind of wanted to go over some of them. But pretty much with all of them, there's only a couple that each power really starts with. So in this game, you know, say for example like Verdun and Paris, those don't count towards the Allies' victory point total because they already started with them. It's about which victory points you take in this game. So another example is, you know, Cologne, Munich, Berlin up here. It's a little bit buried. You know, the Central Powers don't start with those, say, on the tracker with red chips on them. That's not how we do it. It's not like with BBR, like where Paris starts in the Allies' hands and then it's taken by Germany. You know, in this game, each side is trying to take victory points off the map for the other side. And if the other side gains those, they're trying to take them, maybe stop them from getting them by the end of the game. So it's a lot more interesting. And, you know, the victory point tracker sees a lot more action each turn, which is kind of cool to see. Over here in the corner, we have the minor cities tracker. So 3 of these victory points here in silver are related to the minor cities. So we got, if you control 3 minor cities, that's 1 point. 5 and 7. And this is a little helpful guide over here with these little bronze medals to keep track of the minor cities. And those minor cities, they don't really like serve a function other than that for those victory points, but you know, it can be pretty interesting late in the game trying to snag some of these or stop. You know, there could be a huge battle for Basra just to stop, you know, let's say the Central Powers from well, they already start with this, but say the Allies had it. Central Powers trying to gain this back. I mean, there's just so many possibilities when you factor those in. They kind of function like the world oil points from BBR, sort of, where you need to control, you know, 4 out of 10 or 7 out of 10. Now it's 8 out of 10, but yeah, so pretty cool stuff. The victory cities you see here in red, including the capitals. The capitals have like the little buildings there, so you can see that denotes which ones are capitals. About the Petrograd there, Moscow, you know. Those are places where it has essentially built-in industrial complexes. So whether you captured them from your enemy or you start with them, you can build out of those. That's where you can build units. So Belgrade, for example, since I just took Belgrade, next turn I get to build at least 3 units out of there because it's worth 3 IPCs. Lorraine here, which has Verdun, say if Germany takes Lorraine this turn, when it's Germany's turn, next turn they can build up to 2 units out of there. Right now, France can build 2 units out of there. So that's how the minor cities work, which they're incredibly important. There is no purchasing minor complexes or anything like that in this game. So it saves from the clutter of the board too. Now the capitals you can build any amount of units out of. That's a carryover from the original 1914 game. So anywhere where you see those buildings, that's where you can build unlimited units out of. Okay. Other thing I should point out is that we have all these neutrals. You'll notice some of them have like they have their roundel here, but you have like a little tiny roundel next to it. That shows who they're aligned to. So if the United States comes in here and activates these Brazilian units, they become American units. If Britain comes in here and activates these units, they still become American units. So that becomes important in Africa here. So you see some of these neutrals like Darfur and Cyrenaica are aligned with the Ottoman Empire. If one of the Central Powers comes in there, or the Ottoman Empire itself, and aligns those units, they become Ottoman units. So interesting stuff. This becomes even more important if Britain is brought into the war. So this is how the political situation starts. Germany, Austria-Hungary, Russia, and France, all over here, they are the only ones who start the game at war. The other powers, which automatically will come in next round unless attacked on the first round, will be the Kingdom of Italy, the British Empire, the Ottoman Empire, and the Empire of Japan over there. So that's how that works. So for example, say on Germany's turn, you know, which is coming up, they decide, hey, I want to keep Britain out of the war for an extra turn for some reason. Then you'd probably not want to go into Belgium because Belgium is aligned with Britain, as you can see. And I probably wouldn't want to attack their navy in any way up here. So, or in Africa, I wouldn't want to go walk into Nigeria or Gold Coast or start some trouble over here. So, and you're probably asking, well, wouldn't every player do that? No, they wouldn't. There's a lot of benefit to striking Britain now as Germany while they can't position because they know what's coming next. So you'd probably want to use your forces in Germany, East Africa to maybe make some trouble over here, do these little walk-ins here. Maybe, hey, you want to use your subs and strike that cruiser up there. So there isn't necessarily a benefit. And also, too, if Britain's not in the war, the Ottomans don't get to come into the war yet, because in real-life history, the Ottomans didn't come in until Britain was tied up over here in Europe. Then they sensed an opportunity, and they capitalized. So that could be a problem too if you want the Ottoman Empire to get a good quick start somewhere, whether it's in the Middle East or up here in the Caucasus to cause some trouble with Russia. You know, it may not be beneficial to keep Britain out of the war for that first turn. Now, Italy doesn't have any neutrals aligned with it, so the only way Italy is going to get brought into this is if it's directly attacked. So unlike with Japan, so if Britain is in the war, Japan's in the war. So they had closer relations. Japan wanted to be one of the Western powers at the time. They were seeking to become a regional power. So if Britain is in the war, Japan's in the war. Unless, of course, for some reason, Britain is not attacked, and then Germany uses some of its navy here to attack Japan. So that could be an instance where Britain wasn't yet in the war on its turn, and Japan is. So, yeah. Other than that, just looking to see what we can go over here. We have like some impassable regions here, like the Arabian Desert, Sahara Desert, where you just can't pass through, you can't fly over, that sort of thing. Another thing to keep in mind with those neutrals. So, for example, Netherlands up here, you can see their roundel, right? They have the colonies over here in the South Pacific, Sumatra, Borneo, Celebes, Dutch New Guinea. If, say, the Germans go into the Netherlands to take it over, that's going to activate all of these territories to now be at war with the Central Powers. And what would happen, since they're not aligned with any particular power, the allied player would then decide which units these become. So, I mean, if it happened to me, I would say give these to the British, because the British have the strongest presence in this region. So yeah, these all become British territories, and all these infantry become British infantry. So this sort of model the Dutch coming into the war. Something to keep in mind with Japan, what we have here is our spheres of influence rule with Japan. So that means that they are limited to the Pacific Ocean. So the Pacific Ocean, as we have it defined in the rule book, is sea zones 47 through 75. So 75 ends all the way over here, where the Pacific wraps around to this side of the map, over here. So that's as far as Japan can go in the sea. We do have some land limitations and boundaries. I don't have those in front of me right now. I can't even remember. So we can get to those in another time when we have a better fleshed out video. And then you'll be like, okay, well, what's all these purple and green units here in China? Well, at round 3, unless China is attacked before then, there's going to be a civil war, China's National Protection War in China. So that is another victory point, as you can see on the tracker. Let me show you. Right here. So we have a victory point for China. So each one of these factions in China is aligned, has sympathies with one of the sides in the war, the Central Powers or the Allied Powers. So however, let's say by round 10, the end of the game, the Northern Imperial Dynasty here has the most territories but hasn't fully taken over. That China point goes to the Northern Imperial Dynasty, which is aligned with the Allied Powers. So the Allies would get the China point. That's how that works. So if, for example, the Chinese Civil War ended and say the Northern Imperial Dynasty completely took over all the other Chinese territories, then the National Protection War ends and China is essentially just a frozen in time neutral. So, but you'll notice too, they have some minor cities here, Shanghai and Peking, if I'm saying that correctly. I think that's modern day Beijing. Germany, if it had its units still here, could be like, okay, well, we need another minor city to hold that point. I'm gonna have to go into China. So they go in, try and hold it. Then Japan might be like, oh well, I gotta try and stop them because we gotta get that back. And then if that happens, China is brought back into the war, but as a unified state against the Central Powers. Okay, that's how that works. U.S. They come into the war on round 5 unless attacked. In the original, they came in round 4, but in this we have it at round 5. We felt like that was the best. That was like the best timing for them to come in. After all of our play tests. So yeah, trying to look at what else I can show you guys on the map. We have tons of convoy zones. We feel like convoys should be much more in play in this game, and they are, which is really cool. I love it. Some interesting things over in this side of the map. Chile is aligned with the Germans. If Germany aligns any territories like, say, Chile or Mexico, there's 2 Mexican territories, then that will bring America into the war early because they'll see it as a sign of aggression. So, yeah, cool stuff. So I'm just going to go over the tracker and sort of show you guys what some of these mean. You'll notice there's 4 here that are gold. Those are worth 2 points each, and those are the capitals of some of the main nations doing war here. So we got Berlin, Vienna, London, and Paris. We both felt that, you know, if any of those fall, that is a massive occurrence in the game, and it should be awarded as such. not only do you gain the your opponent's income, just like you do in any other Axis and Allies game when you take a capital, but you also gain 2 points, and I think that would be a huge occurrence if that happened. So I have these markers down already because these are what the Allies and the Central Powers already have after the first turn. So as you can see, I've captured Belgrade, and they have the favorable trade point here. I'll explain that in a second. They've prevented the Russian Revolution from happening. Well, it's only been Austria-Hungary's first turn, so can't really expect that to flip anytime soon. Pacific Colonies point is still being held by, it starts off pretty much in Central Power hands, and then we have Africa with the Allies. So I'll explain those. So the Western Front, what is that? The Western Front is whoever controls the most Western Front territories by the end of the game. And we usually mark who's winning that one with their color bingo chip. So right now it's pretty much a stalemate, I think. So whoever's winning it, it's between Picardy, Belgium, Rhine Province, Alsace, Lorraine, and Burgundy. So I guess technically the Allies are winning the Western Front because they have 3 of them, whereas Germany only has 2. So if Germany goes into Belgium and holds it well, doesn't lose any territories here, that would mean that there's a tie going on. Now, if a territory is contested, then it does not count as being controlled. So what does contested mean? For all of you guys who have not played the original 1914, in the 1914 version and in our version, territories can be contested, where it means that no one controls the territory. So for example, Lorraine here, let's say Germany goes in with just this amount of infantry. There's only 1 round of combat in this game, and I know what you're thinking. Oh, that sucks. No, actually it doesn't. I thought it was going to suck the first time I ever played 1914. I was like, there's no way I'm going to like this because, oh, it's going to be too slow. It's not. It's actually pretty cool. It's a whole different way of thinking. It's pretty exciting, actually, believe it or not. So let's say Germany comes in here. We do our 1 round of combat. I lose a couple infantry. He loses a couple. I'm not even going to take them off there. This territory is contested. No one controls it. There's units that survived from the battle for France and units that survived the battle for Germany. This is a contested territory. France loses the 2 IPCs for Lorraine. Germany does not gain the 2 IPCs. So that's how contested territories work. So if it's France's turn, then what happens is they can choose to move, let's say these units from Burgundy, they want to move them into Lorraine. They can move them in there without fighting. It's just a reinforcement. They can do that. They don't have to fight if they're bringing the units in. They can choose to reinforce. And the same thing goes for Germany on their next turn. They can send more units in there just to beef it up. So you get some interesting dynamics happening when you have contested territories. Just thought I'd show you guys. So, okay. Let's see what else. So we went over the Western Front. We've got favorable trade. Okay, favorable trade means from sea zones 18, 19, 20, and 21, all the territories bordering those sea zones on mainland Europe, whoever controls the most of them. So right now, Denmark, Netherlands, and Belgium wouldn't count for anybody because they're still neutral. Sorry, camera work sucks. But Hanover is in German control. However, 3 of these are controlled by the Allies, Aquitaine, Brittany, and Picardy. So right now, at the start of the game, the Allies have favorable trade in Europe. So that's why they have their bingo chip on that one. Let's see here, Mediterranean, very simple point. Where you see these naval base icons, that's where a naval base is. That's where the only places where a power can build a naval unit, and you can build any number of them. So, for example, up here in London, you can build any number of naval units regardless of what the IPC value of the adjacent territory is. There's also one over here in Wales too. So there are 4 naval bases, 2 for the Allies, 2 for the Central Powers in the Mediterranean. We got 1 here for the Ottoman Empire, as you can see there, 1 for Austria-Hungary, 1 in Rome for the Allies, and 1 in Provence for France. So whoever controls 3 or more gets the med point. And here's the thing with these points, sometimes nobody gets them. That's what happens. We play tested this game, and sometimes some of these points nobody ends up getting, so that's fine. Next point is the Balkans. Hugely important region in the game. That is controlling Romania, Bulgaria, Serbia, Albania, and Greece. So if the Central Powers control all of those, they have the Balkans point. If they do not control it, the Allies have it. So it's kind of like the Russian Revolution. It's preventing something from happening. So actually, I was wrong. The Allies should have that point right now. Black Sea point, if you can see that. So the Black Sea is whoever controls the 2 ports. You can see the naval port there, naval base there, and naval base in Crimea, and no enemy warships in the Black Sea. So right now, as you can see, it's a dead tie right here between the Ottomans and the Russians. Okay, that's Black Sea. We have Suez Canal. Suez Canal is whoever controls Palestine and Egypt. So again, with this one, just like in the Western Front, let's say the Ottomans have Palestine and then Egypt is contested. Well, nobody has the Suez Canal point. So same thing goes for if the British were contesting Palestine and they held Egypt. Contested territories do not count towards either side. Middle East oil. Middle East oil, if I'm remembering correctly, I got it open right here. So it is controlling 3 out of the 4 following territories: Caucasus, Persia, Mesopotamia, and Arabia. So Arabia, Persia, Mesopotamia, Caucasus, key oil territories. So that's that one. So right now these are neutral. So somebody would have to attack Persia in order to get that point to control it all. Where else we are? Africa. So Africa sees a good amount of action in this game. They're small skirmishes. They're not big giant stacks going at each other like in Europe, but there is a decent amount of action here, especially early in the game. So that point is whoever controls the most original British, French, German, or Ottoman aligned territories. So you'll see these 3 Ottoman aligned territories: Darfur, Dervish State, and Cyrenaica. And then there's a whole bunch of French and British colonies, and you have a handful of German ones here. So whoever controls the most of those territories. So right now, the Allies have it, because look how many French and British ones there are. The Ottomans don't have theirs yet because these haven't been activated. And then looks like the Germans have 5. Yeah, Togoland, Cameroon, Southwest Africa, and German East Africa. Okay. What else we got here? We got the Pacific colonies. Now this one we're trying to work on better wording in the rule book. But the way we have it right now is that in order for the Allies to get this point, the Allies must control all of the German colonies in the Pacific. So remember, the Pacific starts from sea zone 47 all the way to 75, which wraps around the map. So those can be island or non-island territories. So that would include Germany's most prized colony in the Pacific, which is Tsingtao, if I'm saying that correctly. That would include that as well. And we also, with the ending of the Pacific Ocean, we're including Trinidad in there just to have this actually mean something in the game. So it's any colony in the Pacific plus Trinidad. And we're going to have a restriction on this so that the Germans must control at least one of their original colonies in order to get it. So the reason we're wording it that way, and it may sound confusing, but let's say if the Germans lost all their colonies, but somehow they managed to grab Fiji and hold on to it at the end of the game. Well, we're not going to include that because that's an original British territory. They must hold on to one of their prized possessions in the Pacific. So it's kind of like a morale thing for the Germans. So the Germans have to control at least one of their original colonies by the end of the game in order to get the point. The Allies must snag up any British colonies in the Pacific, any. So that would include if they had Fiji. They'd have to knock it all out. Okay. The China point, we went over that one already. Russian Revolution, we went over that too. Little hammer and sickle there. Fate of Russia point. So what the fate of Russia point is that only comes into play if the Russian Revolution happens. So as I mentioned before, if the Russian Revolution happens, whatever's left of Russia, there is a civil war. So it's a new setup. It's kind of like what's happening with the Chinese. There's a simple setup for the Soviets versus the White Russians, and they duke it out. So whichever side ends up with more territories at the end, kind of like with China, that point goes to whichever respective side. So the Soviets are aligned with the Central Powers. I mean, it's kind of goofy to think about, but it's, in this instance, it would be the case because the Allies did not want to see the Soviets take control. So if the Soviets won that civil war, the fate of Russia point would go to the Central Powers. If the White Russians won, then to the Allies. Okay. What else we got here? We got the Empire point right here. the Empire point is kind of like the Reich or Imperium point from BBR. So it's getting to 85 or more on the income tracker. So if Germany and Austria-Hungary get to 85 or more, they get the Empire point. If France and Britain combined get to 85 or more, they get that victory point. And it is possible for both sides to get that victory point. Yes, it is. It can happen. It's very rare, but it can happen. And then you'll see after the Empire point, Cologne, Verdun, these are all cities here, right here. And then we have our minor cities victory points. 3 minor cities, 5 and 7. So, and that's what our tracker's looking like after Austria-Hungary's turn. And we've got Italy over here. Some of these around those you might not recognize. These are the 2 Chinese factions, both starting at 8. Got the United States at 21, Ottoman Empire at 19, German Empire at 38, British Empire at 40, French Republic at 28, and then Austria-Hungary and the Russian Empire at 32. So, can't wait to start this game. This game definitely has its own addictive feel. There's so much more I'd like to go into right now with this game, but I'll save that for more of the proper rule videos down the line. But stay tuned, everybody. I've already filmed my Austria-Hungary turn, and then hopefully MooseCow can get to the Russian Empire, which goes next. Oh, let me do the turn order real quick. We have Austria-Hungary going first, then we have the Russian Empire second, German Empire, which I got my money all over here, I'm not getting my purchases planned. Then we have the French Republic, British Empire, Empire of Japan, Ottoman Empire, Kingdom of Italy, United States, and then at round 3, if not yet attacked, the 2 Chinese factions. So there you go, guys. Long-winded video, but maybe somebody might be interested in it. I don't know. But stay tuned. It's going to be an exciting game. Love this game. We do not think there will be any changes to the map. If we have any alterations to this game, it will be in national objectives or setups. So once you buy a map, you've got it. So there you go, guys. Stay tuned. I got nothing else to say.